All right. Welcome back to the 1000% Shift. I am happy to have you here. I am today going to be talking to you about motivation and why it matters for us. Whether you are a leader or whether you are someone else altogether and you don't consider yourself a leader, it doesn't really matter because motivation is important. So there's a lot of psychology, there's a whole entirety of psychologists, like this whole group of psychologists that actually do nothing but study motivation, and it's really awesome. We've talked in the Foundations of Leadership course about Maslow's hierarchy, and some of the motivations that kind of go along with that, and how as we get certain needs met, our motivation for new experiences and new things continues to kind of go up. And that is not just a pyramid. Like you don't just climb the pyramid and then that's it. Like you get to the top of transcendence and that's it, right? Like those motivations change, your needs change throughout your life. There's a whole bunch of different aspects of this that we need to consider. So as we are leaders and we're looking at stepping into leadership, we're going to talk about how we can motivate others. And so I'm going to give you some perspectives on that. Let me share my screen for you. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? So we're going to talk about creating a foundation for motivation. And this is beyond the pyramid. It's not just talking about your basic needs. It's talking about everything else that is the foundation of motivation. We're going to talk about the true role of leadership in motivation and how to become a master of that. And then how to maximize the results that you are getting from your team or yourself through motivating yourself and those around you. Okay. So what is motivation? Well, let's just summarize it. Okay. It's an internal process. And what it does is it takes a need and it establishes a reason to go get that need and we go and get it. So the Webster dictionary is something such as a need or a desire that causes a person to act. That's the actual definition of motivation or motive, right? Psychology describes it as that internal process that stimulates a condition inside of us that is a desire to change or in either ourselves or in the environment. Okay. And so when we tap into that well of energy, that motivation, right? What it does is it endows the people that we're working with or ourselves with a drive and a direction, right? It allows us the needed energy and intensity to engage with the environment. It gives us an adaptive, open-ended, and problem-solving view of the world so that we can move past things. And all of that is from positive psychology, which is that subgroup that I was just talking about of psychologists that are studying what motivation is. Okay. So for me, there are two fundamental questions to motivation, and that's what causes that behavior and why does behavior vary in intensity? And what studies are showing is that the reason that it varies in intensity is typically because that person is motivated by extrinsic motivation. And this is where we dig into the meat of what leadership is. Okay. So motivation intrinsically is this internal process, right? It is something that will typically motivate us because of joy, of fulfillment, peace are some of the potential rewards that we get from intrinsic motivation. And ideally, it's to satisfy our own personal needs. Okay, whether that sometimes that need is recognition, sometimes that need is a paycheck, sometimes that need is a variety of other things. But the idea is that intrinsic motivation solves a need for us, where an extrinsic motivation is to obtain or avoid some sort of reward or punishment for a behavior, right? So case in point, bribery, right? And I'm not talking about the cop stuff. I'm talking about the parent stuff, right? When we bribe our kids to exhibit certain behaviors, that is extrinsic motivation. Okay. So for instance, if you're trying to teach a child potty training, okay, One of those systems that was recommended as I was teaching my kids potty training was stickers on the board, right? So you get a big poster board, you put stickers every time they go to the bathroom and just try, they get a sticker, right? And as they progress, then you give a sticker for completing the activity, right? Fully. So as we work through extrinsic motivations, those are things like stickers, money, praise, shame. Extrinsic motivators could be prison time, right? Like those are all extrinsic, outside. Okay. If you were potty training a child and they were a little bit older and had a good sense of self and they were having difficulties, they might be intrinsically motivated to potty train if they wanted to be a big kid, right? Big kid, right? So there's this piece that happens with how our bodies and our minds process different things, right? And this is where that piece comes in from intrinsic versus extrinsic, because one is external, one is internal, but extrinsic rewards are temporary. Okay. So if you're looking at ways to motivate your staff, ways to motivate your team, ways to motivate your family, and you're giving them things like a sticker system or a gift card or whatever, that motivation only lasts so long. And either it turns into an intrinsic motivation or it loses steam and you don't get traction with it anymore. Okay. So how do we change our extrinsic motivation into intrinsic? And I think for me, it really starts with ourselves. Okay. Now we've been through the Foundations of Leadership course where we kind of went over who we are, what we're about. Are we somebody to follow? Are we leading by example? What does that look like for us? But it's really understanding that portion of ourselves and helping other people to do the same. Okay. And when you look at when we're trying to motivate people, what we need to understand is why do we want to motivate them, right? So if you're a sales leader, for instance, and you're motivating somebody to achieve sales results, why do you want that? And the basic answer when I talk to sales leaders about this, well, they say something to the effect of, well, that's the goal, right? Like that's their job. Their job is to get X amount of sales in a quarter because it's their territory. But we always have to dig deeper because it's not about whether or not it's their job. They know what they have to do to show up for a paycheck, right? But why is that motivating to you? Why do you want to motivate them? Sometimes that, again, is that extrinsic motivation where fear of shame of them not doing things or praise for them going above and beyond, right? If you're a sales leader and you're trying to motivate a team of salespeople, money is a really good reward for that, right? And that goes so far. But if you have someone who's struggling to find motivation within what they do, and that motivation for money isn't happening anymore, then the question is why do you still want them to do well, right? And I always go back to the idea of the more questions you ask, the more you'll figure it out. So why do you want the desired actions of your team? Right? Why do you want this motivation to happen? Why do you want them to do what you want them to do? Is it shame? Is it intrinsic or is it extrinsic? Right? Is it fulfilling for you to watch them succeed and that's why you want it? Or is there a praise or a shame factor? Is it concern that you're going to lose your job if you don't hit sales? Is it a fear thing? Right? So we have to establish why do we want that desired action? And then we have to look at how do we translate that? Okay. So anytime that we deal with other people and we're trying to motivate them, we need to understand what they are motivated by. We have to care more about them than the goal. And people smell it. Like if you don't care about them, they know you don't care about them, right? So you have to put yourself in a place to care about your team above and beyond any goals that you set for them. You care about them, right? And that goes back to figuring out what their intrinsic motivation is, right? You have to figure out what they are motivated by. Do they want joy? Do they want fulfillment? Do they want safety and security? That's how you motivate people. It's not about the goal, right? Because at the basic level, if the goal is to make somebody else money, that's not going to help them to be motivated, right? Even if the goal is to make them money, again, that is a temporary motivation and it doesn't get us through the hard times. Okay. So asking questions like, why do you want to make money? Well, my answer might be because I want to pay the bills. Okay, but why do you want to pay the bills? Well, because the bills have to be paid. Okay, but why? And continuing to drill down to understand that. The next piece that is included with the starting with you idea is consistency of your message. Okay. If your message is to care about your team and make sure that they are successful, no matter what their success metric looks like, and that is the consistency of the message, you will not fail. Okay. But if your consistency of your message is with one person, I want you to be successful, and with another person, I need you to hit goal because of metrics. And then with another person, hey, you're doing a really great job. I want you to go above and beyond and, train our team or to do this. Your message is not getting across to everybody, right? So your consistency of your message, whatever your intrinsic motivation is, needs to be translated in a message that is consistently delivered no matter which team member that you're talking to or which family member, depending on who you're trying to motivate, right? And most importantly, it's about leading by example, right? Like you can't go through and say, here's my message, and then not act on it yourself. Okay. You have to be motivated, amped up, energized for yourself before you're like that for everybody else. It's incredibly important that you get that straight, right? You have to be the person who leads. And sometimes you will lead far ahead of the pack, meaning you'll do this consistent behavior for many, many, many months before the rest of your team catches on. That happens sometimes. So you have to be prepared for that. But if you can lead by example, if you can get your message consistent, if you can really dig down into who you are and what you're motivated by, and then share that with the team and be truly concerned about their welfare and their success and their well-being, all of the rest of it will fall into place. Okay. So this is a recording. Normally at this point, I would do a discussion with you, but because we're not live, I just want you to take a chance to answer these questions. So pause the video, look through these questions. I'll say them out loud if it's easier for you to pause after I say them out loud. But I want you to take these and really ask these questions deeply. Take some time to think about this. Okay. So before we go into any of the others and we're looking at the foundation of you and motivation, okay, I want you to really address what is the goal that you have in mind. And remember, in the Foundations of Leadership course, we made SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, action-based, relatable, and timely, right? So we made these SMART goals. We're working through this stuff. I need you now to take a look at the goals that you have established for your team. And I want you to establish those in the same way that we did with our Foundations of Leadership course. Okay. And then I want you to look at all of those goals and I want you to figure out which one of those goals is motivating you as the leader. And what I mean by that is that your goals as an organization might include like hitting revenue, right? Or hitting a sales dollar or doing any of those things, right? But are those motivating to you personally? Like, do you care whether or not you hit sales other than the fact that it makes you money? Probably not, right? So I want you to look at the goal that you have in mind and what is motivating you about that goal. Okay. And then I want you to look at why do you need to motivate the others that are around you? Okay. This all comes down to that core intrinsic motivation, right? If you have a goal in mind and you don't know what's motivating you towards that goal, you are not going to achieve it. You have to know what it is about that goal that motivates you. And if you can't find anything, right? So say you're a sales leader, you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, our goal is $2 million in revenue in the next 2 years. Okay, great. What does that look like though? Right? Like, what does that look like? So depending on what you do for a living, you need to go back to your mission statement of your company. You may need to go back to your value statement. You may need to go back to the product. You may need to go back to the customer. What is the impact? Who does that look like? Who does it impact? Why is that important? Go back to the Foundations of Leadership course and redo all of this, but instead of focusing on you, when it says, what do you have in mind? Focus on your team, focus on your job, focus on your business. Okay. So figure out what the goal is. What do you have in mind? What's motivating you? And then I want to know, why do you want to motivate the rest of your team? What is it? Why is it important for you to do that? Okay. And that all should tie in together with that goal, with the mission statement and everything. Okay. So your role, all right. Generals don't lead with carrots on a stick. They don't. They might recruit with carrots on a stick, but they don't lead with it. Okay. Generals lead by inspiring soldiers to understand the mission, to be able to have confidence in fulfilling the mission, and understanding how a failure will impact the mission. Okay. Titles don't just automatically equal respect. Okay. So you have to understand the team and the people that you work with before you can even start motivating them. All right. This is where, again, you have to tie in your goals, your dreams, your inspirations to the company you work with, the missions that are there, your department, your team, and vice versa. If you're here and the place where you are most effective in leading is with your family, you need to understand what your goals are as a leader of your family. Is it to inspire them? Is it to see successful children? Is it to help them be more kind in the world? Right? When you can understand how your impact is made and that what your role is, that's when we get away from carrots on a stick and we start inspiring other people, right? We inspire them to take action. All right. You have to help your team to build their foundations. That's why the Foundations of Leadership course is a course that you continually can go back to, because you need to help your teams and the people around you to build their foundation, to figure out what motivates them. Okay. Now, oops, I totally fast forwarded there. I think I do that once every recording. I want you to be honest with yourself. Okay. I want you to ask yourself, can you replicate the things that motivate your team? Can you replicate them? Can you tie in those goals, dreams, inspirations, and motivations into yours? If not, you might not have either the right team, the right goals, the right leadership. Like, you need to really assess that. Okay. You have to tie it all in. Everything needs to fit together. Okay. And what I encourage you to do is find a team mission. Okay. And what that means is your team is one component of the greater good, right? So whether that's your family, whether that's your team at work, whatever that looks like, your team is the mission, right? And so what's the goal? What is the progress that you hope to make? Why is that the goal? And then again, how does that goal impact your entire team? Okay. I want to reiterate, it's not a carrot on a stick. Okay. Motivation is the equivalent of inspiration. As a leader, you should be inspiring people, not motivating them with rewards. Inspiration translates into intrinsic motivation. Okay. All right. So how do we take these results that we start to get as we figure out what motivation is, and how do we make sure that that is something that we can replicate and that we can do things forward? Ripple effects, right? And if you follow Lisa Evans, if you don't follow Lisa Evans, I really want you to follow her, connect with her. Amazing goals. The woman is fantastic. But she talks about ripple effects and having a good ripple effect. That's her tagline, have a good ripple effect. And ripple effects have drastic effects, right? So as we motivate through the movement, okay? We inspire our team members and we share with our team members how everybody else on the team is motivated, right? We share with them how everybody thinks differently than somebody else, right? We help to inspire them to lead by example. And we want to do this especially with our top performers and the big team players, like our cheerleaders. Okay. Even if they're not a top performer, your cheerleaders, you want them to be helping you to motivate. Okay. You inspire your team members to learn to motivate others. Okay. The next piece about feedback. We want to foster an environment where people want to grow. We want people to learn to want to grow. Okay. People don't have weaknesses. They have opportunities for growth, and growth is uncomfortable. So as a leader, it's your job to make sure that people get uncomfortable. But it's also your job to foster an environment where helping others to grow becomes something that is not an uncomfortable process. Okay. You have to be an advocate. And advocacy is different than some of the other pieces that you've heard. So, compassion is something that I talk about a lot. I want to inspire leaders who are compassionate. And compassionate just means that you are able to have feelings for other people and what they're going through. Okay. Advocates, the difference between advocacy and compassion is that advocacy takes action. Okay. You need your team to see that their feedback is heard and respected. You need to take the time to show your team that you are motivated too, that you are motivated to take action on their behalf. When you can do that, that is when you inspire teams. That is when motivation becomes something that you master. And that movement, that advocacy, that taking action, that is what drives that wave of motivation throughout your entire team. Okay. You help your team see the mission on a very individual level. When you do that, and only when you do that, can you see how their motivations on their individual level will tie into the motivations of the group. Okay. So how do we maximize results? The first thing is right people, right roles. Okay. I love this. If you look at a school bus, okay, and you have a bus driver, an aide, and all of the students, if you put one of the students in the bus driver roles, where is the bus going? We don't know, right? If you take the aide and put it in the bus driver roles, where are we going? Ooh, maybe we're doing a little better, but it's not the right role, okay? And that is a very simple analogy because I know teams are very complex, but we want to make sure that people are able to capitalize on their strengths and that we motivate them through making an investment into them. We help them find the tools, the trainings, the information that they need to be successful. We have to encourage spaces of natural creativity, natural uniqueness. And when we inspire those places and we encourage the places for them to express those things, that's when things kind of take a change and we can really maximize on results. Okay. We ask our teams to be assertive with us and we have to listen to them. This comes back to the advocacy piece that we were just talking about. Advocate for your teams, give them the space to be unique, to capitalize on their strengths, and encourage them to tell you what they need. And you do that by actually taking action and getting them what they need. Okay. We talked in a previous slide about caring about results more than or caring about people more than the results. Okay. Please make sure that when you are talking with people, you are being transparent for yourself too. Let your team learn how to motivate by motivating you, right? Be transparent. We all have challenges. And so let them know I'm struggling with this too. And here's what my struggle is. Do you guys have any solutions for this? Right? Let them teach you. Check in with your team. Especially when you're going through times of change, check in with them. Make sure that they're doing okay during that process. Okay. Once you find the motivation and you're starting to maximize results, and that's where your focus is, you have to make sure that your team is still practicing self-care, because when they find intrinsic motivation, that's like a big motor. It's just going to keep giving them this fire and they're going to want to keep doing things. And that's okay. But we want to make sure that they aren't spending so much of their own energy and resources and that they begin to not feel like they're getting anything in return. And I'm not just talking about a paycheck. Remember, people aren't motivated by a paycheck. A paycheck is temporary and they can get that anywhere. Okay. People are motivated by somebody who cares more about them than the results. So making sure that people aren't burning themselves up and they are just keeping the candle lit. Okay. So how do we do this? So when we reinforce motivations and rewards, obviously intrinsic is internal. So we want to talk to them about what they enjoyed about the process, the impacts that they made, the fulfillment that they got. Okay. Extrinsic is a place for you to say, okay, that was a really great job. And be very specific. This is what I really loved about what you did. This is super fabulous. This is fantastic. You crushed it. Okay. But be super specific. And that's one of the ways that we can do that. There's other ways, right? So we can give them monetary bonuses, etc. That is all obviously rewards that you can motivate with. But if you can drill down and understand what that intrinsic motivation is for people, that will get you a really long way. Okay. All right. So with all of that said, I would like to open it up for you for thoughts and feedback. You can hit us up on any of the pages here, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or through the 1000% Shift mailing list. Okay. But what I'll say is that if you have specific feedback that you want to give to me, there is a form that's within the 1000% Shift dashboard. I want you to fill that out. Let me know how these programs are working for you. Let me know what those pieces are that really give you an inspiring impact for your team. And with that, I will let you go and I will see you on the next module.